What's up? Welcome to the Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. This is episode number 28, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, and I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram as well if you want to follow me. And of course, I have no affiliation with the band. This is not an official podcast or anything. I am just a fan. But if you're enjoying the show so far, be sure to subscribe and give the show a positive review on iTunes. Doing those things is definitely helpful, for sure. So, today's guest is online guitar instructor, founder of GuitarGate.com, Michael Palmisano. Born and raised in Maryland and playing guitar since he can remember, these days his YouTube channel has over 178,000 subscribers, and he tells me all about his days as a musician and his journey as an entrepreneur. And of course, we talk extensively about how much we love and why we love Derek Trucks guitar playing and TTB as a group, and why we say they're the best band out there. Let's just get into this one. Here's Michael Palmisano. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Michael Palmisano. Thank you for joining me on the Zoom here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. You sent me an email, and you said you run an unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast, and I was like, well, that's the best band in the land. Of course I'll do it.
Oh, wow.
Derek is one of those players where when you see him on stage with other giant players, you know, like when you see him with the best of the best, and you see that the respect and deference they give him, it speaks just a tremendous volume. And one of my favorite things about Derek is how much respect he gives to others. I
was just going to say the deference he gives as well. It reciprocates, or they reciprocate. It's just such a symbiotic thing he has with other musicians.
Yeah, it's huge and it's palpable, and you can see it, especially in the earlier years, like, you know, in the Allman Brother years, where he is literally learning the ropes. But I mean, everybody knows he's the future, and that he's incredibly talented and gifted and works as hard as anybody, and he's got it. But at the same time, he's the young one, you know, and he's you know, learning from these masters, and you see how concerned he is, you know, physically, especially in the early tours, with showing off too much and doing very, very respectful. And I've never met him in person. I've never gotten a chance to talk to him. He actually lives near some family in Jacksonville, where I'm in Florida, where I'm actually going in November. But I imagine he's just as humble in person as he seems to be on stage.
That's what everyone seems to say from who I've spoke to on this podcast. And most people have met Derek at once or twice or more, or connected to him in some way. Right. And that's been all of their experiences, be they fans, other musicians, journalists. Everyone speaks to how that's true. What you're saying about him being humble.
Yeah, no, you can see it in the way that I mean, everything from just how he treats songs. It comes from such a deep level of respect for the actual song and the writer, you know, and just the vibe of it. He's arguably my favorite living guitar player. I mean, we just lost, you know, perhaps the only other person that could unseat him yesterday in Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
But which is terrible. But as far as you know, who's the best in the game right now? I mean, like, I'd go see Derek tomorrow if I could go see him.
Yeah, for sure. Why don't we get into your life and your journey a little bit, and tell me about growing up? You born and raised in Maryland. What are your early, like, musical memories? Like, even from when you're real young, 4, 5, 6 years old. Does anything musically jump out at you, and what's your background a little? You know,
yeah, I mean, so I did not grow up in a musical family, but somehow or another, a guitar found its way in my hands, and I actually don't remember not playing. I know that your guests won't see this, but I posted it on Instagram a few days ago. But here's a picture of me at my desk. I'm like
That is a cute photograph. How old are you? You must be about 3 or 4.
I'm 3 or 4. I can't be much older than that. And you can see I'm already like holding a pick and everything. So I don't know where that came from and who did it, but no one in my family plays a musical instrument. I don't know how it happened, but I don't remember not playing. So I've always played guitar.
Wow. Yeah, it makes sense because I've seen you play on the internet and you're pretty good. you're a pretty good, damn good player, my friend.
Well, thank you.
I enjoy it.
I appreciate that. It's I had many dreams, aspirational dreams of playing professionally and touring and doing all those things. And now I online education is my thing. I've committed to it. I've built a life around it, and I couldn't be happier. But I appreciate you saying that. I've put a lot of hours into the wood and wire, as they say.
You must have heard music when you were real young. That's what must have got you into it, just from hearing songs or something. Just must have living other.
I was always into music.
You can't remember not listening to music and not playing. That's funny.
No, I can't. I can't. It's really interesting too, because I especially the past day after Van Halen died. You're seeing all these people post these long stories about, like, I remember the first time I heard this, and I don't have any of those memories. Like I for any band, like nothing is really. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but like
what were you listening to, like when you were in elementary school, like classic rock, the Beatles or something? Like what were you into?
Let's see. I think my first cassette was Houses of the Holy, which I think I got. That's Led Zeppelin. I think I got it like, I don't know, 7 or something. But yeah, in our area, and I still do this today. I know that it's different than it used to be, but I've always loved the radio. I've always loved not knowing what comes next, and I listen to a lot of obscure radio stations, like, because of the internet on your phone. I can listen to a New Orleans college radio station, and I do that stuff all the time. And just to get out of my comfort zone and listen to different stuff.
What apps do you use? Certain apps for that?
I use TuneIn.
Yeah, I've gone. Yeah, that's pretty good for weird radio to search.
For weird radio, for weird radio. But anyway, so in Baltimore, we were fortunate to have some really good classic rock stations and what they would call back in those days alternative stations. So I was very much a classic rock kid, a metal kid, and a grunge kid growing up very early. So much so that I remember, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 36, and so I'm
in that same range, a couple of years older.
Yeah, so I remember, like, when Kurt Cobain died, I was so devastated that I didn't go to school for a few days. Like, I was holed up in my room, and I look back on it, and like, I was probably only in 2nd or 3rd grade, and so I was already that emotionally committed to music. It had already made that profound of an impact on my life at that extremely young age.
What were the 3 genres? I think 3 genres you mentioned that you were into.
So I grew up a metalhead more than anything. Music was definitely the way for me to get my angst and energy out. And then that obviously turned into grunge, because I'm a kid of the early 90s, late 80s, musical realm. And so all of your Nirvanas and your Alice in Chains and your Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and all that, those were monstrous for me. And so, yeah, that's what I grew up listening to. And then when I started playing guitar with, a friend that played drums, I lived in a very rural area. So it's not like there was tons of people around, certainly not tons that played music, and certainly not tons that played that kind of music. So I spent most of my middle school and high school years just jamming with the drummer, believe it or not. Not even a bass player. We never really could find one any good. And basically just played metal, just like Pantera and Slayer and that type of stuff for like 6 or 7 years is basically all I did was just thrash out with a drummer. That was my
That's fun though.
before
I could see, yeah, it makes sense that's the genre that you guys would gravitate to, especially if that's what he was into, you know.
yeah. And so that's really everything foundational wise. So I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock, listening to a lot of, the grunge 90s stuff. So a lot of very guitar driven, heavy sounds, whatever. But then when I actually started playing with people and trying to really get better at my instrument, it was all metal. It was all Sabbath, Ozzy and Pantera and Slayer and all. It was all, that was my thing for virtually the entirety of my musical adolescence.
Yeah, and then what about after that?
Well, then you're exposed to lots of things, but lots of things happen. But basically, when I went to school at GIT in California, I got bit by the bluegrass bug really, really hard, and I made a really hard turn and went very deep into bluegrass and traditional Americana music, and found that a lot of those licks translate. It's just kind of like a different phrasing and approach. And I loved that. And then that, turned into a love for country and I'm into all kinds of stuff, funk, reggae. But like, as far as what I've spent the most years cutting my teeth, it would be just, straight ahead 80s and very early 90s metal, and bluegrass.
Yeah, I want to know a little bit more, maybe about the jump from metal to bluegrass. And I was thinking about it. The only thing that I could really think of is that it's both kind of has a lot of notes. It's like very frenetic in a sense, even if it's played on very different instruments. Is it something in your life? Who was the girl who liked bluegrass in your life?
Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't a girl. This is, again, I can't sit here and think of the moment or, the first time I heard it or whatever. But the guy that really connected with me was Doc Watson. If you're familiar with Doc Watson, he's one of the best flat pickers that ever lived. And what made sense to me about bluegrass, coming from a metal background, is that yes, there's a lot of notes, but that's not really it. Bluegrass, there's no drummer, so everybody is the percussion. So when you're arranging bluegrass tunes, you have to think about rhythm and dynamics first, and then your harmony and your melody are kind of built on top of that. It's a very strict idiom, to use Bob Weir's terms, explaining this, meaning, like metal, it is primarily like rhythmic, like it's very percussive. Every instrument is the percussion instrument, and it's very strict. So everybody has to voice lead together, change together. It's a very specific plan. Like, even though it might feel loose, like, it is really not loose. These guys are a freight train, just like a heavy band would be. And at speed, a lot of those licks really translate. You'd be surprised how many of those Van Halen, like Dimebag licks, are very similar to, your Jerry Reed stuff and your Tony Rice stuff. Like, it's pretty applicable. And that's also, the other part to that is not from a musical guitar playing part, is that I've always been a song guy. Like, at the end of the day, as much as I'm a music head and a guitar player and I love playing all the notes and everything, what I really want to hear is a story about somebody that I feel like I could understand what it is to be them for that moment. And bluegrass is chock full of that stuff. You know what I mean? It is just chock full of that stuff. And that's really when I fell in love with making things more simple, more to the point, more poignant. And that kind of took me the rest of the way. And it's a whole, we could go on a bunch of tangents there. But I've learned that jump from people who are into metal to bluegrass is a pretty common story. I know that Billy Strings has almost an identical perspective on this, which I found out from doing an interview like this, and someone told me, and then I read up on it, and apparently it's true. So like, this is not unique to me. It's interesting.
Yeah, I bet it's for similar reasons or similar,
Oh, it's totally
things behind it. Wow.
That's why it's aggressive. That's the thing. Bluegrass is aggressive. Like, you have to really be strong, to play at that tempo and that clip and have your timing dead on for a whole set, for an hour or two. Like, you are not sitting back, letting stuff ring out. You are, I mean, you're working, you're doing it.
And you you gravitate towards that style. You like that.
Yeah.
You like that. Yeah. More than playing something too laid back.
Well, it's
slower tempo.
It's not that I don't like playing things that are laid back, but it's more but that and metal share that.
Yeah, I gotcha. And where does your musical journey kind of go from there? From the bluegrass era, so to speak.
Yeah. So, then my story takes a different turn. So, like you, I'm sure, I don't really love, any particular genre more than others. It's just, if it sounds good, it is good. It could be any genre, right? So when I came home from GIT, I started working in corporate bands, because it's pay to play, and that's where all the money is on the local scene. So doing casinos, weddings, big events, corporate cover band. And in that world, you have to play all the hits from all the biggest genres from all the different decades. And I did that for many, many years. And that gave me a really strong appreciation for songwriting and arrangements and what makes a hook a hook. And that really, sent me, I really stayed in that vein, like that kind of that bluegrass vein, but then really got into, for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years of really dissecting what makes all these great songs connect with people who aren't musicians. You know what I mean? Like, these huge songs are not music for music people. They're music for musicians. They're music for everyone. And so when I was in that world, I did that a lot. Like, I was really, really into it. These days, I mean, listen, I listen to all kinds of stuff. I really do. I'm newly baptized, if you will, into the jam scene. I've been about a year in, so I listen to a lot of that. But if I'm sitting by myself having beers, my favorite thing to do is just listen to old school George Jones, old country stories. That's my jam.
What makes a hook a hook? What makes a song appeal to non-musical people?
So
what is it? Something in the brain?
So that's the $1 million question. And I really love this question. And the answer is obviously there is no singular answer, but generally speaking, it is the same with music as it is with art, as it is with poetry, as it is with as it is with mathematics, as it is with anything in life. Human beings connect with simplicity. Very, very, I keep using the word poignant, but like very, very focused and condensed and just purposeful simplicity. All of the biggest, writers out there, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It's the one line, you know what I mean? And it's simple that you just like, I know it, It's simple melodies that anyone can get stuck in their head without having any musical ability. They're in the car on the way home from a show, they're in the shower the next day, and it's still stuck in their head. Like those things are never ever complicated. They're just perfect little melodies that connect simple chord movements that are tied with lyrics that tell a story that they can relate to. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with anything in life. It is so much easier to play all the notes and go faster and show off and just throw a bunch of shit out there. It is far harder to do something very simple exceptionally well.
Yeah, I do the former more when I play.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Well, and we do it not just when we're playing, just like when we're speaking. Like
Oh yeah.
Like anybody in your life that just like says what they mean what they say, like they communicate in like one or two sentences, and it's like there's nothing else that needs to be said. And then you have the other people in your life that will talk for 2 hours and communicated nothing. It's literally exactly the same. And to tie it all back to Tedeschi Trucks, like that's one of the main reasons or the main things that I get from Derek's playing is that purity. It's not like he's playing extremely complicated lines. They're actually very straight ahead vocal lines, meaning like a voice. They don't jump all over the place. They're not doing crazy sweep picking and all these crazy techniques. Like that's not what it is. Just like a voice is generally going up and then it's going down, and there's all the things in the middle, all the movement, and it's just perfect. It's
right.
Simple and perfect, and that's and telling a story and completely genuine and pure, so that's kind of the thing. But yeah, the one thing you'll notice if you listen to all the biggest songs of all time, I mean, generally speaking, it's usually 2 to 3 chords, and the melody that hooks them together is like 2 to 3 notes, and it's the same amount of lyrics, and they're just perfect for each other.
Yeah, no, it makes it sound so easy and so simple to do, but why couldn't
the hardest thing to do in the world?
Yeah, I always ask, like, why didn't you come up with the "Come As You Are" Nirvana riff yourself, or something? Not you specifically, but other,
Yeah, no, exactly. Like think about that line. Like every person that's listening to this can hear it right now in their heads.
Right.
It's imprinted for life, and it's literally 4 notes.
Yeah, but no one put those notes exactly in that rhythm, in that order, and that
right
tempo. But it's more than that. It's the song also. It's everything that goes.
Yeah, it's everything that goes with it. But in general, people, like human beings, can't emotionally connect to things that are overly complicated. Straight ahead, but powerful things are what we remember. it's why when I always try to relate it back to speech or something other something else, but like you think like 77 years ago, like everybody knows the beginning of that speech, right? It's like, it's so simple, but it's like all of a sudden it's just boom. It's like, I know exactly where we are. You know what I mean? Like it's those things are what people can't remember complex things. They need something simple and something powerful for it to stick. And all the best tunes and the best songs in the world were simple.
Is that something your students don't often lose sight of, or they don't get or don't see, or that needs to be explained to students?
So again, this whole idea of trying to find the inside, trying to break complex down into simple and to get the magic of simplicity and minimalism. That's something you do with age, man. When you, like I said, I started life as a kid as a metalhead, faster, furious, louder, all the things, right? I was so far away from playing a 3-note hook that someone couldn't get out of their head, right? I was just, showing off like we all do. We all start there. It takes a certain level of maturity to understand that less is more.
Yeah.
There's a whole. I did a video. I'm sure you've seen it, and yeah, it's cheesy because it's a movie and like it's overdone. It's not like it's real life. But have you ever seen Eddie and the Cruisers too?
I don't think I have. If I have, it was a while ago. I know I've heard of those movies for sure.
Well, there's a video on my channel. I think it's called "Everybody Should Watch Eddie and the Cruisers," and the scene in the movie is there's this young, super great, super flashy guitarist in the studio with an older, seasoned, mature player. And they both take a turn over this track. And the young kid is trying to show off. And he's phenomenal. And he's crushing it. And as soon as the kid starts burning, the old guy puts his guitar down, he fires up a cigarette and just waits for it to be over, right? And basically, the kid's like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "Well, that's not bad." And the kid's like, "What do you mean not bad?" And he's like, "Well, I'll tell you what not bad means. Not bad means if I was in a bar and I was having a drink and you were playing the band up there, I'd have a good time. And then I'd get in the car and I'd go home and I'd forget all about you. That's what not bad means." And the kid was just like crushed, but it's so true. And the kid's like, "So show me what you're talking about." And right now, I can't hear a single thing that younger kid was playing, but the old guy comes in and he makes a simple 3-note melody and just makes it sing on the guitar. And I can hear it in my ear right now, and I haven't seen the movie in years. So the point is very well delivered, and that's kind of the thing. I believe it's a maturity thing. It really is. And again, not just with music, it's, with speaking, with art, with anything else. It's just true.
And that can only come with what? Life experience?
Yes.
There's no shortcuts. But I've been trying to find the shortcuts, but there are none. I don't think there are. I've looked.
No, I don't believe that there are. I mean, some people obviously get lucky, but they can't sustain. They can't sustain great, impactful careers with luck.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you sort of heard or got into Derek Trucks' guitar and his music? We're talking about him a little bit earlier on, I remember.
Yeah. No, I don't remember, but he's one of those guys that, again, has always been at the end of the table with all the best of the best. And I don't remember not knowing who he was. I mean, and I feel like, I don't know. I know you run this podcast and you ask a lot of people that question, but I feel like it's probably a pretty consistent answer that people have felt that he's one of the best since he was like a kid.
No, of
And
course,
that,
yeah.
and that really was never like this aha moment, because like he's kind of always been there. It just his hair's gotten longer and he's just like got more of a beard, but like he's still like he's the baddest motherfucker on the planet.
Right. He had his sound, he had his tone, he had his style, he had his sort of stage presence and demeanor, like pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah.
from the beginning.
That's what I mean. It's not like, I mean, like he's gotten better,
Of course.
of course, but like, you know, he was he was he was really really exceptional, like from day one on the scene. Like when I, you know, you have to remember, like, you know, our age, we're similar ages, but like when I, you know, when first got into the Allman Brothers, um, you know, Dwayne was already dead.
Right.
You know, like I, so I was never around or alive to see the original members or anything like that. So knowing about the Allman Brothers meant knowing about Warren and Derek, you know, and Dickie, obviously, you know what I mean? Like, but that's like, so I don't remember not knowing that, you know, like I was there,
Sure.
heard the records, but I don't know. I feel like, especially in like the guitar world, for people that do it for a living, and when you go to school for guitar, like I did, everybody has always had that deep reverence for Derek Trucks. Like it's not, he isn't one of those controversial players where, you know, you might get in Mayer or like a Trey Anastasio or like a um rock guitar players, you know, Slash or anyone, where people are like, oh no, I you know, that guy's great,
And
or I don't, I think he's
I feel like
overrated. Like,
yeah, a lot of this stuff I think is even just that these rock stars become cult of personalities. They have
yes,
the media plays into, it can influence how the public feels about these people. But in terms of guitar, like you know,
yeah, Derek's one of those guys that
yeah,
has
yeah, he's never
he's
got that
bypassed
issues.
all of that. Yeah, he's just, and I think a lot of it has to do too with what we talked about before, with him being so young and so deferential and respectful of the people that came before him in an incredibly amazing band with extremely high levels of expectation, and not joining that when he was, you know, 40, you know, but being raised in it, and not cut any slack either. And I think that I think somehow he has managed to just become basically everyone's favorite. Really,
Yeah,
it's just kind of true. Like even people that don't really like, you know, that, you know, blues centered styling, people that, you know, just aren't really into that, they all they I really cannot think of a single conversation I've ever had where someone that isn't just like, oh yeah, Derek's about the best there ever was. Like it's just like everyone's pretty much in agreement.
if you're looking for a slide guitar part on your album, almost regardless of what genre of you're in, if you know, he's probably who you're gonna call.
Yeah, if he can get him, and he'll do it.
Especially, I'm just saying, yeah. No, I agree with everything that
But like
that
even,
you're
but
saying.
even like, so especially when you go to school for music and you're surrounded by people who are the best wherever they came from, and you have people from a lot of different genres, you have a lot of really strong opinions on other musicians and all those things, especially from your jazz elitist world, right? And like people who are like really into like the crazy 7 or 8 string like neoclassical shred world, you know what I mean? Where these guys really don't. I know I'm going to get hammered for this. They don't show that much respect for people in other genres. It's just kind of true, man. Like the super crazy jazz heads really look down on basically everything. And the super duper, like, shred guys who just they spend 8 hours a day working on their legato stuff. Like they just and these all players, they all play like mind-blowing stuff that we'd never be able to put together unless we just treated our bodies like computers and just did it. That was just how they do it. They really don't give props to a lot of players in other genres because it's too simple or for whatever reason. It doesn't require in their minds that high 50,000-foot stratospheric view of music, with a couple of exceptions. And Derek is always one of those exceptions. He just is. Like, you can be talking to anybody that's huge in any genre. Horn players, they don't have to be guitar players, keyboard players, like Derek's one of those guys where, like, if you talk to anybody that's a lifer, like a real musician that's like doing it for a living, they're like, that's Derek Trucks. I mean, he's like about the best there ever was. Like, it's pretty much not something people argue about.
I feel like it's the vocal quality of his playing,
yes.
Especially. That's what.
Yes, it is.
That would draw.
Well, it's so many things. I think the vocal part is huge. It's perhaps the largest thing, but there's so many other things. His rhythm parts, the way that everything is meant to fit together as a band, and
he's the band leader.
And serves the song is like really just as huge to me. But yeah, as far as his actual lead lines, yeah, I mean he it sounds like a church singer.
Yeah, it's funny because you can hear some people, like, you hear people say, "Oh, like the Derek Trucks Band was like, oh, that I like that more than TTB or other, Derek outlets because it was more him playing, or it's not enough him, or it's too much him." I feel like I'm willing to trust him and the musicians he plays with to, that they know what's best as far as like for the song and for how much he should play and when he should play and all of that. So I don't know. I've just never really had that thought, listening to any of his music, be it Derek Trucks Band with the Allman Brothers or Tedeschi Trucks Band. I always felt like every single track I listened to, it's like, oh, that's how the song was meant to be. Even if it's a live version of a studio recording or something like that, and a different live version the next night, I always think like, oh, that right in that moment, that time, that's what it's supposed to be in that moment,
Well, and that's kind of the point of this type of band, in this improvised based genre. It's not supposed to be the same product every night in a different town. It's supposed to be different,
right?
And that's important. And I'm also one of those guys who doesn't really buy too much into that this iteration of this player is substantially better than this iteration of that player. There are so many examples where it'd be easy to do that, but usually you find that people keep progressing and that, they might veer off or come back or do things more in the genre that you're used to or away from it. But if you're great, if you're great, generally you keep making great stuff. If you're one of those artists that works as hard as you are talented, which of course he does and is.
Have you seen Derek? I was going to ask, have you seen Derek live?
Oh yeah, dude. I just saw Tedeschi Trucks Band right before COVID ended in DC. I think it was February or January. It was cold. And previous to that, I've seen them. When was the first time I saw Derek? I think the first time I saw Derek, I saw him when he was touring with Clapton, and I lived in LA. So this has to be 2006 or 7-ish, something in there. And they were playing the Staples Center in downtown LA. And my roommate and I went down there and saw it. And Derek stole the show.
Right. His sound cuts through everything, no matter who he's playing with on stage, no matter what instruments they're playing. Often, regardless of the volumes of the different instruments, like his sound always cuts through, and not in like, I don't know, in an obnoxious way ever. It's just like his style just jumps out at you.
It does. It's the touch, it's the timbre, it's all of it, it's the phrasing. But that's absolutely accurate. I mean, he sounds like him everywhere all the time. And when he was playing with Clapton, I mean, he's with the best players in the world. I mean, those are all the best, the biggest paid touring guys out there in those bands. Steve Gadd and Nathan East and all those, the heaviest of heavy hitters. And Derek is just it's just the icing on the cake for bands like that. When he just lets one rip, I mean, he sings. He just sings, and when you sing, you always cut through.
Right. This is the ultimate Derek Trucks fanboy episode so far. Like, we've done the ultimate. Everyone has said amazing things, and you're echoing so much of what other people have talked about on this podcast.
I'm sure.
And then some. No, but even beyond, like how articulate you are about the music and inspired you are about the music is cool to hear, and how much you really, how passionate you are about.
No, I mean, it's easy to do. I mean, I meant it when I said it. I mean, like, if you ask me who probably is the best band in the land right now, I'd say Tedeschi Trucks Band. I mean,
I think so too. I think it's obvious.
It's obvious for anyone that's seen them and really paying attention. It's now, people have different goalposts. They have different metrics on what would make a good band and what they expect to get from a show. If you want a heavy, sweaty, mosh pitty show, then we're in a different conversation. You know what I mean? If you're looking for a super heady, all improv instrumental, that's not what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So you gotta, and it's certainly not stadium rock. You know what I mean? Or pop or any, like, it's there are way different barometers for different people.
I would see them in all those venues.
Well, I know, right? but I think that if you So I always look at it through the lens of someone who has played in working bands. And when you play in working bands, your perspective changes significantly than if you put your own band together and you're doing whatever. Tedeschi Trucks has what, like 12 pieces
12,
in the
yeah.
band? Yeah. Okay. When you have 12 pieces in a band, the arrangement and the not just the arrangement of the songs, but the arrangement of the sonic arrangement, as if you're looking at a keyboard and everything is its own place. You have your bass, your mids, your treble, and everything is here, and everything has its own spot. If the keyboard player only played in the center, if the horn players only played their horn notes right around middle C, if Derek only played around that middle spot, it would sound like complete garbage. And if the drummer and everybody all played at the same volume and everything was in one spot, it would be total trash. Where they really, really, really excel, for people that have played in a lot of big bands, so like 5 or 6 pieces plus, is how exceptional they are in their arrangements in the sonic and timbre landscape. Meaning, he plays single coils, he plays humbuckers. You got 2 different drummers, but they're playing very different sounding drums, right? You have the keys, you got the Rhodes and the Hammond thing. Then you have the bass. You got the three different horns, the other 3 different backup singers, and somehow, it doesn't sound like it's being squeezed through a hose like this. Somehow it sounds like an entire wall is thrown at you, and that's because no one is stepping on anybody else's toes or occupying anybody else's spot in the mix. And that is something you don't understand that's happening unless you've worked it, and you've lived it. Seeing a band that is that many pieces, that well rehearsed, and have all the sounds be complementary sounds and all the volumes be right in totally different rooms, indoor, outdoor, whatever, is really exceptional, especially when you take into account the key sound besides her voice in the mix is Derek's guitar. And Derek doesn't use monitors. So the whole band is creating this foundation, right? Everybody has monitors. Everybody can hear each other, right? And it's mixed, and so whatever. But Derek doesn't even have a vocal monitor in front of him. No in-ears, nothing. And he alone adjusts his volume live for the room every gig he goes to. It is tremendous, to put it lightly.
Damn, we got in deep. That's cool stuff to hear.
Well, and that's stuff people don't talk about or pick up on as just music listeners. But that's what I mean when I say, like, you can play a Tedeschi Trucks Band track, or even if they're having like that one at the White House. Like, I know that that's kind of like a mixed band, and it's kind of cut up, but like, you place anyone like that's played in a big band, a working band with lots of pieces. It doesn't matter whether it's gospel or whether it's funk or whether it's reggae or whatever it is. It's people that have a lot of different sounds and a lot of stuff going on. Within 2 seconds, that person's going to look at you and be like, yeah, this is a real one.
Yeah.
it is undeniable for anybody that knows.
You love it. You're into it. You're into the music. You love listening.
I
You
love
love
it.
playing. You love everything about it.
Yes, I live it.
Tell me about your business and your teaching and all that, and how you got started and all the details of that.
Well, I'll make a long story short, but basically, when I was playing locally in these corporate bands, I did what every musician does. I also teach, because you have to do both to make a living. You just do. Gigs pay well if you get in the right band, but that doesn't mean that it pays enough or to where you feel comfortable not like working when the sun's up. so
Right.
so everybody teaches, right? You have to do both, or at least three things as a musician, and do studio sessions or whatever. Anyway, somewhere along the way, even though I know that I'm a good guitar player, I realized that once I got married and started having kids, that there was no growth future in chasing gigs and being on stage, because I was maxed out. I was already doing 110, 120 dates a year in a big corporate band, meaning I was making about as much money as you can make on the local level. And really that means about as much money as you can make, like, unless you become like put it this way. I have we're not talking a lot of money, but like I have a lot of friends that have played in regional and even national touring bands as members of the band and as hired guns. And the money is after everyone gets paid, and
it goes fast,
and the vans get the gas and the hotel rooms and the tax and all the everything that goes along. And obviously this is pre-COVID. At the end of the day, the cash that goes in your pocket is usually less than if you went and played a wedding and got home that night. It's just true. It's just true. And that's not why people do it. But, I knew once I got married and we started having kids that I wanted to build a life that would allow me to be around my kids and be there and not be gone and tour and be an absentee dad and do all those things, because that was the most important thing to me. And I also had really fallen in love with teaching, so much so that I will readily admit that while I know that I'm a very competent guitar player and I don't have any doubts on my abilities or the time I've put into my instrument, I think I'm a substantially better teacher and communicator than I am a guitar player, which frankly I think is saying a lot. And I really do believe it. I fell in love with teaching, and I fell in love with how it made me feel about myself, because I got to see impact that I was making and the growth in others. And this was, I taught from 2007 onward, whenever I moved back from LA. And so by 2013 or so, I started seeing the internet kind of come around and people starting to teach online for a living. You're very early adopters of YouTube. This is obviously pre-Instagram. Facebook wasn't monetized yet. This is very early, even though it's only 7 years ago. And so I went all in on online education in January of 2013 and didn't know what the hell I was doing. The roadmap then was
there was none.
There wasn't.
Yeah.
No. And honestly, the online education on a consumer level, not like colleges, but on like a you and me level, really didn't become official until COVID. Like
Right. No,
now it's like officially a legit industry that has no stigma. Online education is a thing now, right? But that kind of just happened. Previous to this, I mean, it was really cobbled together. There were a whole host of ways you could go about it. Websites were expensive. There weren't all these third-party options. People weren't watching HD videos on their phone. It was a mess. Anyway, but I knew I wasn't wrong, and that I would figure it out eventually. So I lost money for like 2 years. Still had to gig, still had to teach, but then eventually started finding my footing, finding who my students were and what they really wanted. And it's a long process trying to figure out simple things like, who your actual student would be and what they actually are their goals online and how you can actually help them. Now it seems so basic, but like that's hard stuff to figure out.
No, I can relate to that as like a podcaster seeking an audience and a larger audience and things like that to understand like the marketing and the business side of things. But that's important to like provide a service or whatever it may be. Whatever you do, that's something that has value to some amount of people, even if it's a niche audience. That's
absolutely,
that's interesting.
Yeah. And so the teaching in person and the gigging kept the business, which was called GuitarGate, alive for the first 2 years. And then I started to figure it out. And then over the next 2 years, I stopped teaching in-person lessons, still gigged because that was the lion's share of the income. And then around 2018, I stopped doing the 110, 120 dates a year. So basically every Friday, Saturday, and most Sundays I'm gone. That stopped in 2018. So since 2018, I've been 100% commuting down my stairs into this room you see right now to make educational content for the internet.
That's amazing. And you also teach people in private lessons, individual lessons?
No, I haven't done that since 2016.
I'm talking about online, via online.
No,
nothing. So it's only content online. That's amazing. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. No one. Well, see, that's the whole idea. I mean, one-on-one was never scalable. Like I was already at my limit in
right.
person.
You had.
I was teaching 50 or 60 students a week for 7 years or 8 years or something. So, I could do it from my house, but I'm still not. I still can't do more.
Yeah, you can make more and reach more people.
Yeah, and that's really the thing for it's a different conversation, but for anybody that wants to do anything on the internet, play to the internet strengths. Do things that you can only do on the internet. Don't do things on the internet that you could also just do in your house. Like, the internet is technology is very, very powerful. So play to that.
That must
go on. So I only do scalable things. I don't do anything. I mean, it is extremely rare for me to do something one-on-one for multiple reasons. One, I can't because I have so much else going on.
Yeah, family and all that too.
Oh my God, dude! Especially during COVID, it's literally I can't even imagine taking one-on-one lessons. Like I can't. Like the only reason I can do this is because it's after 9 and all the kids are in bed. And that's not going to happen. And I certainly couldn't even do it every night. And so, but it's also like, I want to make courses. I want to make a website and a community that is active on its own without me, so that the other students and people there can motivate and inspire each other. And it's a place where we all grow and get better. And it's not just me saying, do this, try that, whatever. Like I want it to be this, its own world where people get to become motivated and inspired to pick the thing up every day and get better and see a lot of other activity that isn't
cool.
just from me. Like, and because that's what you get when you go to like a music school. You get stuff from the teacher, but the community is the real thing. Like, you know, seeing someone else pick it up every day and show up and get better and working on stuff that you know is hard makes you do that and makes you want to do that. And I know that we can't be together physically, but I tried to make a community on my website that does that as best as I can with current technology. So like students can post videos completing lessons, they can share songs of what they're listening to, they can share stuff like, you know, clips of their band. It's like a whole thing, you know, it's not just courses. And so that's what I work on every day is building a community that is becoming its own little thing and not just having it be about me.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's commendable too. I'll get one more.
It.
Yeah, one more question for you, and then you could tell people where they could find and follow you, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening with the kids. Kids asleep for a few minutes. And nah, forget it. It's gonna come back in 2 minutes. Why don't you just tell people where they can find and follow you?
Cool. So if you just search my name, Michael Palmisano, MichaelPalmisano, you'll find me, especially if you do Michael Palmisano guitar. Most people generally find me through my YouTube channel, which is my same name. If you want to find me on Instagram, or if you're looking for an online teacher or are attracted to what you heard me say about the community we built around guitar education, that's called GuitarGate. And you can search guitargate.com. If you just search my name, you'll find my YouTube channel and you'll see what I'm all about. And that's it.
Say your Instagram one more time. That actually cut out for a second there.
It's GuitarGate. Again, GuitarGate. It's the same as my website. Or you can just search my name, Michael Palmisano, and it'll come up too. But that's it. Easy, simple.
Cool. I remember what I wanted to ask you. What did it feel like when you first, decided or found out or came to the conclusion that you could work out of your home studio and you were able to do that full time and do the online thing full time? Like, well, because that's like a goal. That was like a goal for you, right? That sounded like that was a goal. And you reached your goal. Were you able to celebrate that? Was that like an amazing feeling?
We're sort of celebrating now because, like I said, now is kind of like when it's official. Like COVID really made it clear to everyone that online education is valuable, important, and here to stay. It's like a real industry, and that teachers can reach people from around the world. And it's like my parents and grandparents and my kids, everybody understands that now, right? It's not like before when it's like, what do you do? I don't get it, And so now my wife and I are kind of, openly celebrating that, like, we might have been early,
right. I was thinking that,
but we sure as shit weren't wrong.
Right. It's great.
And it's a big deal. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the people, as much as they may or may not appreciate me. I really appreciate the community so much because I'm more inspired and motivated to play and pick up the guitar and get better than I've ever been, at least since I was a GIT. And it's just been a really it's an interesting gift because you work so many years and have so many failures and challenges and triumphs and emotional roller coaster. And eventually, if you don't give up, you get to a spot where you do get to live in this world that you made up. And you know, from a lot of my friends that have done something similar, it's all virtually a similar time frame: 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. No one's like 1 or 2 years, maybe a couple people, but you know, we'll see how that plays out. But like, it takes a while, you know, whatever it is. And then when you actually finally get to live in this little world that you made like from scratch out of your head, it's really nice. And then when people start showing up there and it changes on you, where your mindset starts changing and you start getting the benefits that you set out to offer, is really a special place to get to. And I'm this summer I got there. And so now I feel comfortable, you know, celebrating something really, really positive, because I'm really proud of it. And I'm also really personally touched. And I mean it, like I'm playing more than I ever have. And it's really just a tremendous group of people that we all are in this together.
Dude, that's all awesome. Wow, well said. And I'm happy for you, and congratulations on all the successes.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And that you're loving playing and enjoying it and passionate about the music, and becoming even more passionate about the music you hear, the professionals, the students, everything. That's just
totally
a great story. And again, I thank you for your time. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to looking forward to more videos. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole even further on your stuff.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate it. And to all your listeners, thank you for tuning in. And yeah, lots of more stuff coming up on YouTube. I hope you find stuff you like. And if anybody's listening, I mean, you can always join us over at GuitarGate for courses and lessons and all that. And I wish you the best of luck with your podcast. And maybe see you at a Tedeschi Trucks show one day.
Oh, for sure. Hopefully soon. One of these days.
2021, baby.
You got it, man. Take care. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Later. So there you go. My conversation with Michael Palmisano. I'm just impressed with that guy, and thank him again for his time. A businessman, an artist, and he just seems like a good, down-to-earth family man. Maybe I'll go down a bluegrass listening rabbit hole next. We'll see. Anyway, for now, hope everyone out there is hanging in there during this super fun and wonderful 2020. And please check out Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. That's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. And of course, remember to tap subscribe or follow on iTunes, Spotify, or via whichever way you listen to this show. And again, positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated. But I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening, of course. Later.